I do love following book awards, and they do tempt me, and I have a lot of feelings about the Goodreads Choice Awards. Oh, I think I'm going to sneeze. Alright, I better get going, otherwise my battery is going to die and I won't have filmed anything. But what a mess. What a mess. Okay, hello, hi everybody, hey. Welcome back to my channel. Before I actually slap some stuff on my face, I should probably say what I am doing. So I am losing my mind over the Goodreads Choice Awards. I keep wanting to say the Goodreads Good Choice Awards, but we don't even know if they're good choices. And I wanted to talk about that, the Goodreads Choice Awards, all of my feelings, whether I'm going to pick these up, and why I had a moment where I feel like I blacked out and went to the library and ordered a bunch of books and picked them up. And we're just gonna talk about it, okay, y'all? We're gonna talk about it, okay? Okay, let's get the hair in a place that actually looks like something. Ugh. Okay, I think that's something. If this is your first time to my channel, then hello, hi, I'm Shelly, and I love books and reading. And what a video to start with. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna title this, "What the F am I thinking?" As it is a hyperbole. I am being hyperbolic when I say that. And, you know, I don't know, I feel like the way to say hyperbolic was hyperbolic, like I'm being very hyperbolic about it. And then all of a sudden, language changed on me, and it's now, you know, hyperbolic. I have a lot of feelings about Goodreads and the Choice Awards, and I was tempted, and anyways, we're gonna get all into that. But if you like books and reading, if you like following prizes, and you are interested in mindful content, can I even say that my content is mindful? Mindful content about books and book awards and buying books and reading books, then yeah, I would encourage you to subscribe and stick around. Now let's just get started and let's just jump into this video, okay? Let's just get started. Gracious me. So today I actually need to look somewhat decent because I am going to a baptism of a dear friend in town. Her little one is getting baptized. It's going to be done in Latin. And I have the job of holding their older child, who is just over 1, like she's still a baby, not for the baptism, but as my friend preps the food for the guests. So she was like, can you hold my daughter while I get the food ready for the guests? And I was like, of course, you know, not during the ceremony or anything, not that I would want to, but I was like, of course, that is a super important job. And I love her daughter, and we get along swimmingly. So I want to actually, you know, I want to look somewhat put together for that. And yeah, so I'm getting ready for my real life, you know, my real day. Okay, so I think the best way to get at the Goodreads Choice Awards and all of my feelings is to do it storytime style. So this year I have been following a ton of prizes, and I have been doing videos about book awards and book prizes pretty much the entire year. So the prizes that I have followed thus far are the Women's Prize for Fiction, the Booker, the Pulitzer, the BookTube Prize. I was a judge for the BookTube Prize, and I followed that with a huge amount of interest. And then now I have the Goodreads Choice Awards. And originally I had tossed around this idea of reading an entire category, or trying to read through an entire category, as the process was going from the long list to the short list to the winners. And I have been told, I have landed in that space where I have been going back and forth and oscillating on it, because there is a part of me that would love to do that. Sort of selfishly or interestingly, as an experiment in content, you know, as in like I would love to make a video about it, reading all of the selections of one of the awards. But then it also, I also like that's the part that sounds fun. I would love to, you know, have a lot of opinions and read the entire long list, because I hadn't read the entire long list for any of the awards. And that's the thing that I go back on. So I'm like, I want to read all of the, you know, fiction or historical fiction in the Goodreads Choice Awards. And I'm going to get into like my feelings and thoughts about the 2022 long list for the categories. So there is this part of me that's like, yes, I want to do that. I want to do that because it sounds interesting, it sounds fun, it sounds like something I've never done before. And then I go back on it immediately because I'm like, that is really against my principles of a reader. Meaning I don't like any award to dictate what I am reading. Partly because I think there are a lot of politics that go into the book choices. I think that they are slanted in a lot of ways, and I don't think that any award is going to align with my taste enough that I would love every book on the list. And so to do it would be just for like bragging rights, or to say that I've done it, bragging rights, to like make a video about it. But I am already like well established enough in this community, like our little corner of booktube, as we say, as somebody who cherry picks the books on the list. I'm not a completionist in the least. I'm like the opposite of completionist. I'm like, no, you're not gonna boss me around. I'm gonna boss you around, long list, and I am gonna be the boss of my own reading, and I'm gonna choose what I want to read. So I had, you know, I've been going back and forth on this. Gosh, I feel like the blush is strong today. Give me a moment. I can tone down the blush. Just move on. So then the awards come out, the long list for, I don't know, 50 categories that Goodreads is putting out there. And here's the deal. Let me just, I'm gonna go down a little thought path for just a moment. I don't know how Goodreads chooses their initial round. And I know that we get to, you know, we the voters vote for, you know, the books on the short list. But I don't know how they generate the long list, and I don't know, there's a part of me that wonders, you know, are you putting books on the list because Amazon has a stake in that book? Because Goodreads and Amazon are connected. And are you doing this for book sales? Or there's this mistrust that I have of Goodreads and the way that they generate their long list. So there's that. So then coming back to the long lists were announced, and I have them here. And immediately I was very dismissive of certain categories, the categories that I think that I would be most interested in reading. So the first one is, I'm going to go through them now, and then I'll tell you when I lost my mind, when I truly blacked out and I was like doing behaviors that I'm not even sure, I don't even agree with. So here's the deal. So best of fiction. So one of the books I saw was Emma Stubbs' This Time Tomorrow. And I immediately thought that it was Emma Donoghue's book. And I was like, Emma Donoghue, I've wanted to read her because I have Wonder right here by Emma Donoghue. And what a great time to read something by Emma Donoghue. And then I was like, wait a second, you already have an Emma Donoghue book, so why not just read the Emma Donoghue book? And then it came to me that Emma Stubb and Emma Donoghue are two different people, of course. And I don't even have any interest in reading anything by Emma Stubb. No offense. I don't know much about her. She's never really piqued my interest, so on and so forth. So I was like, so immediately I had like a misstep with the long list for fiction for this Goodreads Choice Awards. All right, so let's keep going. Then I saw the book Notes on an Execution, and that was one of the books that I already decided that I didn't want to read. I already anti-hauled True Biz by Sarah Novak. It is just a book that it just doesn't really pique my interest. As much as the content piques my interest, but I haven't heard anything wonderful about it, and I'm kind of waiting for that glowing review of True Biz to actually pick it up. Then I saw Night Crawling by Layla Motley, and I have already decided, I tried that book and I DNF'd it immediately. It is not for me. Elin Hilderbrand, another author that I know of from back when I worked at the library, and I heard she writes very sweet books. And I'm not really a sweet book kind of girl. Then there is Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. Fraser read this book and said it was okay. And I would rather go for a book that Fraser has loved rather than a book that he just thinks is meh. Already anti-hauled Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. I read her book The Poison Bible, which was good but not great. Hanya Yanagihara's To Paradise. Haven't we all agreed, like everyone in the book world, that this book is a far cry from A Little Life? Like a far cry. So I really don't even know why it's on this list. I already read Lucy by the Sea by Elizabeth Strout. I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. But it's strange that the fourth book in a series is on this list. I mean, you can read it standing alone. I mean, it does make sense if you read it by itself, because it's set during the time of COVID, the beginning of COVID. It's following an older lady who's a writer who's reconnecting with her ex-husband. So I really love this, but I was confused as to why they were putting this on the list. I just, you know, the fourth book in a series, I have mixed feelings about putting like the third, second, you know, books in a series that are beyond number one, you know? Fredrik Backman, I read A Man Called Uwe. I liked it but didn't love it, and there's nothing about his writing that makes me want to pick anything else by him up. I already anti-hauled Celeste Ng's, what is it called? Our Missing Hearts. I think Scott read this from Gunpowder Fiction and Plot, I'm not really sure, and didn't like it, which should tell me that I would love it, but I was like, I read Little Fires Everywhere and I just thought it was so overhyped. I didn't get why people love that book. And then the last book, the last two, oh my gosh, y'all, Jodi Picoult, Mad Honey and Wish You Were Here. Jodi Picoult is another author that I've more or less just said, like, I don't really want to read her stuff. I know I'm familiar with her fan base and what they like about her writing, and I have more or less decided that her writing really isn't for me. And then the other books, I've seen them around, they've not piqued my interest yet, and I don't like, why would they pique my interest now, you know? Like that's how I feel about it. So immediately I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna read the fiction category. Then we go to mystery and thriller. Mystery and thriller, I had a moment where I was like, you know, I don't read mystery and thriller. Maybe I'm a mystery and thriller reader. This is the mindset that's gonna get me in trouble later on. I have never read a mystery and thriller, like I'm not a mystery and thriller reader, as I mentioned. And so maybe I want to try a bunch out. So why not read the whole category for mystery and thrillers? Maybe that would give me, you know, something. Maybe like this will be my experiment. Am I a mystery and thriller reader? And as I kind of dove in, like a couple of the books piqued my interest. Namely, Lucy Foley's The Paris Apartment. I had heard Book Olive talk about it, and she said that it really takes off in the second half, and the book is very much worth it, especially if you get to the second half and then it really, you know, kind of flies from there. And then the other one is Richard Osman's The Bullet That Missed, which is the third book in his Thursday Murder Club series. And I'm like, I still need to read the second book. And so it's like the books that I'm interested in, I have little barriers to get there, i.e. reading the second book before getting to the third book. Also, hearkening back to Lucy by the Sea, why would you put the third book in a series on here? Not really sure. And then recently I saw Gloria Z. Thompson talk about The Maid by Nita Prose, and she said she really liked it. And so I was like, that sounds interesting. The mystery and thriller category sounds interesting, but not enough that made me want to be like, you know, maybe, yeah, sure, why not? I moved on quickly from that. And then, interestingly, we get to the historical fiction category. And here's what's really interesting about it is that one of my favorite books this year is already on here, which is Young Mungo by Douglas Stewart. And so I'm like, done. I don't think anything's gonna be better than that, so why would I read a whole category when that book is basically amazing and should win anyways? But if I were going to dive in a little bit more about this list, Taylor Jenkins Reid, Carrie Soto is back. I don't read Taylor Jenkins Reid, and if I were to read her, I don't think I would start with this book since it's set in a world that she's already created in another book, so I would want to read the first book in that world and then get to this one. So again, there's this little like hurdle that I have to get over before even wanting to read Carrie Soto is back. Memphis by Tara M. Stringfellow. Fraser read it and really liked it, and that should say that I want to pick it up, but there isn't I don't know. There's something about it that I am hesitant on. I really don't know why. There is no reason. It's more of a feeling thing. You know, we're gonna go with that. Violeta by Isabel Allende. I own an Isabel Allende book, Daughter of Fortune, which is, I think, one of her most popular works. And I would much rather read the book that I own than the one that Goodreads is, you know, asking me to read. The Marriage Portrait by Maggie O'Farrell. Okay, like I would want to read more of the historical fiction category, but just for this book because I've heard so many good things about Maggie O'Farrell that, like, you know, basically everyone that loved Hamnet, I would want to pick up, you know, one of her books. I haven't read either, and so it would be just an excuse to read Maggie O'Farrell, you know? So I'm like, you know, is that a good enough reason to dive into a category, to invest myself into a long list category because I want to read one author? No, I already have kind of sworn off my list Herman Trust by Herman Diaz because it was on the long list for the Booker, and I've heard so many things about it, and a lot of the reviews are very mixed. And then The Passenger by Cormac McCarthy. It's not that I don't want to read Cormac McCarthy, but I already own The Road by Cormac McCarthy, which is a Pulitzer Prize winning novel. And if I was going to read McCarthy, I would start with the book that I own. I've already anti-hauled Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmus. I've seen it around. Nothing about it has piqued my interest thus far, so why would I all of a sudden be invested in a book just because Goodreads has it on their long list? And then the Diana Gabaldon book, what is it? Go Tell the Bees That I Am Gone. Go Tell the Bees That I Am Gone. What is this? The 900th in her series? I've already mentioned my feeling about series books on long lists. So, and then the other books on the long list, if you want to take a gander, I've either not really heard anything about them, or the things that I have heard about them are less than glowing. You know, so it's like the historical fiction category did tempt me for but a moment, and then I like backed away slowly. Fantasy category in general did tempt me of like just a teeny tiny bit because I have been enjoying more fantasy reads lately. Who am I? Actually, no, I know who I am. I am enjoying the feeling that fantasy gives me because I was one of those kids that read Harry Potter growing up and have warm, fuzzy feelings about magical worlds. And occasionally I like to dive back into that world, or it's not even that world. I really like to dive back into that feeling of being swept away with someone else's magic. And so, you know, I have opinions about fantasy. So when I saw the long list for fantasy on, you know, Goodreads Choice Awards, I had a moment where I was like, you know, maybe, and then I was like, no, Shelley, no. I have fantasy series that I want to read. I've already done a ton of research about different kinds of fantasy that I might want to read. I have books on my mind, books I want to buy, books on my shelves. So immediately sort of the fantasy category was over. I was like, nah, don't do it. Stay away. Next we have romance. And so romance is another category in which like genre of books that I do want to read more of because I think I will like it. Because I think I might really enjoy it. However, the only book that I recognize on the whole list, well, I recognize the Colleen Hoover books, but we all know how I feel about Colleen Hoover, okay? And if you don't, I will leave my Verity review by Colleen Hoover linked down below. The only books that I recognize besides the Colleen Hoover books, thank you TikTok, was Book Lovers by Emily Henry. And I own another Emily Henry book. I think it's The People We Meet on Vacation. And so even though I had that name recognition, and I was like, ooh, Emily Henry, an author I would love to read. I was like, why would you read a different Emily Henry book when you have an Emily Henry book on your shelves, languishing, wanting to be read, calling to you, girl? Like, what is going on? So yeah, so again, I skipped the romance category. The next category was science fiction, which wasn't even tempting, probably because I have this bias against science fiction books, which is that I feel like every science fiction book is one of 1,000 in a series. Like, science fiction books is like, we just go on and on and on and on, and we're part of this really long, laborious series that doesn't know how to end. I know that that is probably a really negative opinion against science fiction, and it's not how I feel about all science fiction. I have met science fiction books that I've loved, but for the most part, that is my general impression of science fiction. And so when I saw the list, I was just like, I will have to read 50 books in order to prep to even get to the book that is on this list. For every one of the books on the list. And so immediately I was like, no. And then we're gonna land on the category that got me in quite a bit of trouble, y'all, okay? So we got to horror, and I saw it, and I had this moment where I was like, I don't think I'm a horror girly. I don't think I read horror, but there's no way for me to know if I actually like horror or not. You know why? Because I haven't read I did like ranking all of the horror books I've ever read in my entire life. And on that list, there was like 7. I have not read a lot of horror books. And so, as I do in the mornings when I wake up, because I get up quite early, I get up around 5. And at 5 in the morning, after seeing this, I was like, maybe I do like horror. And I've just never given it a shot. Maybe there's something about me that really loves getting in that spooky environment, and there's kind of like something creepy going on, and maybe it will suck me in more than I will ever know, but I won't ever know until I read a bunch of horror books. Y'all, I don't like being scared at all. But then I was also thinking, I've read Stephen King. That didn't scare me. I have read Frankenstein. That's a horror book. That didn't scare me. And what if these horror books are really gothic books, disguised as horror, that just have really great atmosphere, really great setting, maybe really good at setting the vibes, that good, sort of gothic vibes. And at the end of the day, they're not actually scary. And I don't know this because I haven't read any. So, at 5 in the morning, I was like, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to read the whole long list for the horror category. Give me 1 second before I actually show you what I did. And, here's what was also going through my mind. I was like, I could vlog the experience. I will let everybody know my feelings about horror. I can really dive into the genre and figure out the tropes and report back on it, and it's gonna be great. It's gonna be great, y'all. So here's what I did. Okay, y'all. I picked up all of these books. I picked up all of these books from the library. I sat down and I just started ordering books from the library, and then I picked them up. And then here's what happened. I realized pretty quickly that this is so unlike me. 1, because it's horror, but 2, I'm picking up books that I know nothing about. I've never even heard reviewed. I don't know anything about these books. That's very unusual. And I haven't read any professional reviews. I haven't even glanced at what the professionals have said about the books in order for me to decide that these are books that I want to read, because I really do trust professional reviews. I mean, it's their job to tell us whether the book is good or not. And so when they tell us that, I tend to, listen or put my ear to the ground and be like, okay, yep, all right, yep, okay. So it was well received in the professional reading and, the world. So I sat down with all of these books, and I took some time and I read professional reviews on all of them. And you know what? Of all the books, all of them were not well received. They were mixed reviews from the professional reviewers. There were some people that was like, it was good, but it will lose readers along the way because of this. Great idea, but not poorly executed. The reviews were middling. There was nothing that was glowing except for one book. One book that I think was what I really wanted to read, what I actually want to read in my heart. The one book that has been very well received here on BookTube. And then I also looked up professional reviews, and the professional reviewers agreed with the booktubers, of course, because booktubers are amazing, that this book is great and has kind of spooky vibes, but isn't totally scary, and you know, so on and so forth. And that book is Our Wives Under the Sea. Now, Lindy at Lindy's Magpie Reads read this and loved it. Gemma Books read it and loved it. Fraser read it and loved it. And then the professional reviewers read it and loved it. And that was the first book I wanted from this horror long list. I was like, yes, an excuse to read Our Wives Under the Sea. Wonderful. And then I got to my library and I realized that they didn't have it. And so I think I ordered, you know, 7 other books to fill the hole that I was feeling, with Our Wives Under the Sea by Julie Armfield. So after I figured that out and I realized that my library doesn't have Our Wives Under the Sea, I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to actually skip on these horror reads, despite getting them all from the library. The only book that actually is kind of interesting or intriguing me a tiny bit is The Violence by Delilah Dawson. But even then, I still want to read Our Wives Under the Sea more. So, you know, and so I'm like, you know, I think that that's what I'm going to do when my no-buy is over. I'm going to buy a copy of Our Wives Under the Sea and I'm going to read that, because that's what I actually want to read, you know? So yeah, so I had a moment where I was like, what the F am I thinking when I picked up all of these books and they're horror and I don't read horror, and all of a sudden I'm thinking that horror is a good idea because why? Goodreads was tempting me, y'all. So, so there's that. So to finish out the categories, humor, I don't really read humor books, and I had a moment where I thought, what did I think? Where is that? Oh, David Sedaris. I was like, are you still writing books? No offense if you really love him, but I'm just like, how many books have you written, sir? I mean, please, just please, please. I had a moment with Nonfiction November, and I was like, maybe I'll read all of the nonfiction books that they have to offer. And then I realized my nonfiction books are better than theirs, and the only nonfiction book that actually looks pretty good is These Precious Days by Ann Patchett, but I own a couple of Ann Patchett books that I haven't read that I would rather read, including Truth and Beauty, which I have. Yeah, Truth and Beauty, which I have languishing on my shelves. And oh, I didn't bring anything for browse. I gotta go do that in just a moment, which I have sitting on my shelves unread, and it is Nonfiction November, so why, again, would I go chase an Ann Patchett book that I don't own, that I would have to get from the library, and that would distract me from my own shelves. And then also the Susan Cain Bittersweet. I thought that sounded interesting, but really I want to read Quiet, her, you know, big book. I would rather read Quiet than Bittersweet, because that's the one that everyone says I ought to read. I mean, you know, that's the one that everybody loves. So again, I would rather start sort of at the peak of an author and decide if I like them or not, and then move on to other works that I think I might enjoy. And Quiet, I promise you, is at every Goodwill in the area, because that book seems to be bought and donated a lot. All right, I'm back. I got my browse, and let's just continue on with memoir and autobiography. I do love memoirs, I really, really do, but we all know that I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy is going to win. I mean, I feel like everybody and their mother has read this book. Everybody has loved it. And I mean, you know, pretty much everybody has loved it. And, whew, I mean, you can't, I mean, it's sold out in stores. You could not get this, because it was just in such high demand. I mean, nobody expected it. But also on this list, the only other book that I even wanted to read was Lost and Found by Catherine Schultz? Because this was very well reviewed by Hannah at Hannah's Books, and I think Olive at a Book Olive. And it just sounded like one of those special memoirs that is very well written and beautiful, and it came out earlier this year, like early in the year, so I think a lot of people forgot about it at this point in the year, and so I was really glad it was on this list, because it reminded me that that is one of the books that I do want to read. I mean, We Were Dreamers sounds great because I love the show, Kim's Convenience, and Simo Liu, Simo Liu, the guy who wrote We Were Dreamers, he stars in that show, and so there's a part of me that's like, I really want to read it because I love that show, but I don't really love celebrity memoirs. So I don't know what I'm thinking. I'm losing some steam, y'all, and I'm basically ready for the day, and my battery is dying literally on my camera. So I'm like, let me wrap this up. So here's the deal. When it came to the rest of the categories, so history and biography, graphic novels and comics, poetry, debut novels, young adult fiction, young adult science fiction and fantasy, and then children's middle grade and children's works. Okay, so those are the rest of the categories. It goes back to my feelings about fiction in that I have my own views and opinions about those categories. There is a very specific vein of history books that I want to read. I have history books on my shelves. There is a very specific kind of graphic novel, and graphic novels typically don't show up at my library, so I'd have to buy them. But there's like a specific taste I have in graphic novels that I don't really want to chase down the graphic novels on the long list that Goodreads is assigning us. Same thing with poetry. There are certain poets that I love, and there are some poets that I have on my shelves that are unread that I would rather read than the long list of the Goodreads Choice Awards. And now I'm sounding like a broken record, gracious me. And so as I was going through it, it was showing me that like I have opinions and ideas about these books, and I don't want the books that Goodreads has chosen for us to choose from to dictate what I am reading. And even though I did have a moment, y'all, I had a moment in which I did order a bunch of horror books, and there is a part of me that would love to read horror books, books that people say are horror, books that are horror but aren't classified as horror. Like, I'm curious about all of that, but I'm not so curious that I'm going to chase down all of the books on this list to read them, to make some sort of decision about how I feel about horror. But I had a moment, y'all. Like, clearly I had a moment. I mean, this is the moment that I had. I had my moment, and it's not the direction I want to go in with my reading. And knowing me, I would much rather do my own research, make my own decisions, watch videos, find somebody that I know and trust in the genre of horror in which I feel like our tastes will align, and what they value is what I value, and to chase my own research. And that way I feel like I have a lot more autonomy over my own reading, instead of being like, well, Goodreads says I should read this, and it's like, I don't even know how they generated their initial list. And so yeah, so these are all of my thoughts about the Goodreads Choice Awards, at least the initial list. And yeah, ultimately I am going to just follow my heart and not read the books that Goodreads is saying that I ought to read. Although I'm pretty sure that after my no buy, I am going to buy Our Wives Under the Sea. So, thank you Goodreads for that. So anyways, that's it from me. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know, has Goodreads tempted you? Where are you at with the Goodreads Choice Awards? I've clearly just spilled my guts about the awards and how I'm feeling about them. A lot of feelings, including just like truly like blacking out for a moment and ordering these books. I'm like, oh, Shelly, what are you thinking? Anyway, so that's it from me. Let me know your thoughts down below. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you all in my next one. Bye.